Okay. Good morning, all. Okay. Today we'll start with. Yes. Anybody wants to talk? Okay, we'll start. Okay. So we'll start with the concept of virus, worms, and what are the procedure used by worms to propagate with the targets. Okay. So obviously we know the concept of the worm because already we are making use of the antivirus, right? So the characteristics of the virus is already that is if we have the virus infected program and it is run, the first what will be happening here is the virus code will get executed. Okay. So one of the tasks of the virus code is to seek other programs which are not yet infected and then pass the infections to other. Okay, that is one or more of them will be getting infected by the virus. So a truly malicious virus may then perform the actions such as deleting the certain files, may delete the files, right? So the infectious, that is the virus may attempt something benign, okay, like it can print a message like hello world, and obviously the execution of the virus code is usually followed by the execution of the host's original program, right? So again the virus code need not be located at the start of the infected file, and also the virus code is both prepended and appended to the host file. Okay, so in the host file, okay, the virus code could be split into several segments and interspreaded throughout the infected file using the jump statements at the end of each of the virus segment. That is, it can be distributed across the host file. Okay. So in most of these cases, again, the size of the infected program is larger than the original host program. This helps in the identification or detection of the infected code by the antivirus. Okay, that is, it will be making use of the parameter that is the length of the file. Okay, the length of the infected code will be more than the length of the original file. Okay, so since antivirus can detect the infectious file, what are the method is adopted by the virus is, that is, to avoid the detection, some viruses will modify the file service interrupt handler that returns the attribute of the files, because we know that the file is associated with the various attributes, its properties, its length, size, when it was created, okay, who are the persons who are able to access the files, that's the permissions, okay, over the file, the various parameters will be associated with the file. So the attributes of the files can be fetched with the usage of the service interrupt handler. So the virus will modify the file service interrupt handler which returns the attributes of the files. So by doing this, the service handler may be programmed to return the uninfected length of the file. Okay, that is to fetch the length of the infected file, and because infected file length will be more, uninfected length of the file is what? The actual length of the file. So by the service handler may be programmed to return the uninfected length of the file, that is the size of the host file may not be determined at all. Okay. So another technique is to use the compression so that the length of an infected file remains the same as the length of its original version by doing the compression of the original file. Then the virus writer includes a compression routine in the viral code. Okay. So to infect another file, the virus first compresses the actual file and then prepends the virus code to the compressed file. The compression of the actual file will be taken place, then the virus code will be prepended. So at the time of the execution, the infected file must be uncompressed. Okay, so to hide the length of the actual file, okay, that is, it can reprogram the service handler so that it is not able to give the actual length of the original file. And the second method is it makes use of the compression of the original file, then it prepends the virus code. Okay, so that the length of the um, infected file and the original file, okay, will remains the same by using the compression technique. Okay, so that the antivirus may not be able to identify the infected file. Okay, so again, one of the features of the mini viruses is the set of the system calls. Obviously we know the system calls, okay, that is by using the various application programs we request for the services of the operating system. Okay, again, for example, it can be called for read or write files, for forming new processors, or to establish a TCP connection, etc. We have various system calls. Okay, so the viruses, what is the role of the viruses? The viruses make calls to copy their own code to the other files. It can create or modify the entries in the Windows registry or search for the email. Okay, so such suspicious calls are often used to distinguish malicious from benign code. Okay, so these are the characteristics of the viruses. Then we'll move on to the worm characteristics. That is, basically we are going to discuss here the various classes of the worms and its features. And worms are commonly classified based on their vector of propagation. That means how it will spread the worms to the other targets. The main categories include the internet scanning worms. So under internet scanning worms, we are going to discuss the two case studies with respect to code red, okay, code red, ASLR, and also the slammer. Okay, then the other categories are email worms, peer-to-peer worms, web worms, and mobile worms. Okay, so here in this table we are seeing the various malware name as well as the type of the malware or the vector of propagation. Vector of propagation is nothing but the method used by this particular malware, okay, to spread the worms. So for example, here we are seeing the VT. It makes use of internet scanning. Similarly, Code Red, which makes use of internet scanning. Slammer, which makes use of internet scanning. Okay, that is the categories, right? So that is, for example, internet scanning. In case of the VT, the one of the first worms to carry a destructive payload, which wiped out the part of its victim's disk itself. Okay, that is the power of the VT worm. Okay. Similarly, code red that spread rapidly, causing the billions of dollars in damage. Okay, then NIMDA, it makes use of the multiple vectors of propagation. For example, it will make use of a thread. Okay, that is how the multiple vectors of propagation will be done with the usage of the thread. So it will make use of the through the email, HTTP, or file sharing. Okay, it can spread. Okay, so this table is with respect to the various worms and the methods adopted by each of the malware. Okay, so now let us see the various features of the worms. So it has enhanced targeting. In enhanced targeting means how it is going to affect the targets. Okay, that is, the worm will spread its infection to the other computers. Okay, again it can make use of the email. Through the email, it can spread the worms to the various number of targets. It can also make use of victim's mailbox or email address book. Okay, to find the set of the targets. As the email address book will be maintaining the phone numbers of the customers. Okay, it will have the access to the phone numbers of its potential victims from the phone book. Okay, so in the cell phone hosting the worm. That is how again it can make a spread. Then it also make use of the search engines to harvest URLs of potentially vulnerable targets. Okay, so this that is by using the through all this media. Okay, the worms can propagate to the targets. Then similarly in the internet scanning worm, it will make use of the IP address space for vulnerable machines. Okay, so that is the method used here is random scanning. As the name itself tells, choosing the IP addresses at random and send the worm to that particular machine. And this was the method used by Code Red version 1. Whereas the Code Red version 2, it was using the localized scanning method. Okay, localized scanning means, for example, we'll be having a shared network addresses. Okay, because in the shared network addresses, what happens again, hosts in the same network are likely to be closer and be running the same software. Okay, so this is an example for the localized scanning. That is, over 80% of the time it was attempted to connect to the victims with whom it shared the network addresses. Okay, this is used by the Code Red version 2. So if you consider the Nimda malware, okay, it makes use of the various propagation methods through HTTP, email. Okay, that is where this was successful in penetrating the perimeter of the enterprise. Okay, once it is inside, it exploited the Windows file sharing the features to spread within the enterprise. That's the capability of this Nimda. Okay, so these are the various methods, okay, used, okay, by the worm to propagate to the targets. Next, enhanced speed. That is, enhanced speed is with respect to the infection rate. Okay, so obviously it will make use of the multiple threads. Each thread is responsible for setting up the connections to a different subset of the host, thus increasing the rate at which the infection is spread. Okay, we know the thread concept, right? That is, which helps in parallel execution. Okay, a single task will be divided among the many threads and it will be executed in parallel. So similarly here also the worm will be distributed among the various number of the threads. Each thread is going to infect more than one machines. Okay, so like this how the spreading of the worms will enhanced, the speed is enhanced here. Okay, so again uh, buffer flow vulnerability. Okay, so we have discussed buffer flow vulnerability, right? It is one of the software vulnerability. Okay, right? So some worm reduces infection latency by targeting a buffer overflow vulnerability on an application that employs the UDP rather than the TCP protocol. Okay, so TCP connection establishment involves a three-way handshake protocol and it is a time consuming. Therefore, a UDP is connectionless as we know. So this UDP will reduces the infection latency. Okay, so the attacker could create one or more hit list. Hit list is nothing but the addresses of the several thousand vulnerable machines will be maintained here. The target details, okay, the target machine details will be maintained in the hit list by an attacker. So here what he will do, the first worm to be let loose could carry one such list. Then as a worm infects each new machine, it splits its list between itself and the machine it has just infected. Okay, so that means the first worm will be having all the target machine details. So once the first worm has infected another machine, the hit list will get split between the first worm and the second machine which has got infected. Similarly, the second worm will start infecting other machine. Again, the hit list available with the setting machine, it will again get divided between the second machine and the third machine. Okay, so like this, the target details will get splitted among the machines, and that is how the threat concept is implemented here. Okay, so the each infected machine will keep on infecting other machines, okay, whose information is available in the hit list along with them. Okay, so given the most of the machines on the hit list are vulnerable, the worm spreads rapidly during the initial stage of epidemic. Thereafter, the infected machines could spread the infections using the random scanning or some other spreading method. Okay, so that is how the speed of the spread is increased. Next, enhanced capabilities. Again, each worm will have the unique and distinct signatures. That is the pattern of the bits, usually represented using the assembly language code. Okay, which appears in all the instances of the worm. So therefore, here the main key of worm and viruses are the signatures. Okay, which can be useful to detect them. Okay, so however they are again sophisticated code which will obfuscation techniques are used. Okay, that is to avoid the detection. Okay, there are various sophisticated code which makes confusions, so that we are not able to identify them, we are not able to detect them. Okay, so one such technique is the usage of the encryption for disguising the worm code. So here what happens is the different instances of the worm may use different keys for encryption. Okay, therefore they may fail to match any existing worm signatures. Okay, so such worms are said to be polymorphic, that is different instances of the worm are going to use different keys for the encryptions. Okay, so and obviously this polymorphic worm would have to be decrypted before being executed. Okay, so at the time of the decryption, okay, it can involve the XOR operations or the tribal shift based substitutions. So however, detecting a worm on the assumption that the decryptor routine is invariant would not always succeed. Okay, so in the polymorphic worms, they will different instances of the worms will make use of different keys for the encryption. Okay, next, here in the figure we are going to see the polymorphic assembly language versions of the same pseudocode. Okay, so here we have for the same functionality we have different versions of the assembly code, version 1 and version 2. Okay, so here when we compare with the version 1 and version 2, we have version 2 is having spurious instructions. Version 2 is having spurious instructions and also the spurious branch instructions to confuse. Okay, worm code detection software that relies on control flow analysis. Okay, we have two versions okay, of the same pseudocode. And here especially the second version has a various branch instructions to confuse the worm code detection software that relies on the control flow analysis. Okay, that is the worms that have multiple such versions. Okay, we have version 1, version 2, etc. here. With or without relying on encryption are referred to as the metamorphic worms. So these are known as the metamorphic worms, which makes use of various versions of its code, okay, which helps in confusing the worm code detection software in detection of the worms. Okay, so here that is we have polymorphic worms which makes use of different keys for the encryption, and metamorphic worms which makes use of various versions, okay, for the same pseudocode. Fine. So next we have enhanced destructive power, that is the one more feature of the worm. So for example, Code Red and Nimda caused billions of dollars in damage. If the analysis is done, okay, the estimated cost based on the lost productivity, cleanup cost, system downtime, okay, these are the parameters which affects business and revenues, right? And also the fast spreading worms also causes the severe network congestion problems, disrupting the normal internet traffic and contributing to the system DOS time. Okay, that is also one of the the attack which can be done by the worms. Okay, then it can also contribute, that is some worms contributed attack packets to a DDoS attack, distributed denial of service attack, or caused website defacement. Okay, then for example, if we consider the Witty war which appeared in March 2004, was qualitatively different compared with other worms. That is, it deleted a random section of the victim's hard disk, which leads to the system crash. Okay, leading to a system crash. So this is the destructive power of the worm. It can do the attack using the attack packets, right? And it can cause the severe network congestion problem, or it may also delete the hard disk section of the victims, which may also lead to a system crash. Okay, this is a feature of the enhanced destructive power. Okay, next we have internet scanning worms. That is a category, the first category of the worm. Okay, so as an example for the internet scanning worms, we have Code Red, okay, and Slammer. We have also have other malware. Here we are going to discuss only these two with respect to internet scanning worms. Okay, so it is the one of the characteristics of the internet scamming worm is that they are self-activated. That is a characteristic. This ability to spread without human intervention. Okay, then this category of the worm is so called because they scan the internet looking for vulnerable machines, so they can target those vulnerable machines. Okay, Then the worm communicates with and delivers its malicious payload to the victim using the standard transport protocols such as TCP or UDP. Once installed on the victim, it could erase the local files, steal the secrets, or deface the web pages. Okay, so but above all, it seeks is the new victims to infect. Always the new victim will be identified and it is going to infect those new victims. Okay, which could erase the local files, steal secrets, and etc. can be performed on all these machines. So, Code Red and Slammer, let us see as a case study for the internet scanning worms. Code Red is one of the best known example of internet scanning worm. Okay, and it was all started on June 18, 2001 when a buffer overflow vulnerability was discovered in Microsoft IaaS web server. Therefore, a patch for this vulnerability was developed after a few days later. So here with the Code Red, it was estimated that there were several millions IaaS servers in active deployment. Okay, so even assuming that a large percentage of these were patched, that still left plenty of room for the spread of the worm, which was unleashed on July 12th. And here the Code Red worm itself was carried in HTTP request messages, which are all targeted at IaaS servers. Again here the first version of the worm used the method known as random number generator to generate a new addresses of the machines to infect. Okay. However, the same seed was used for the random number generator in every instance of the worm. So this is the method of the Code Red. Next, Slammer is also very simple here. Simple few points to discuss. We have the SQL Slammer was launched on 25th January and the targeted buffer overflow vulnerability on the Microsoft SQL Server 2003. Okay, in here basically it sends the packets on UDP port 1434. Okay, so which was basically the database software resolution service which was used for. So it used a simple random scanning method to propagate the worms, and the payload of the slammer was about 384 bytes in length, which is a far smaller than the 4 KB payload of the Code Red. Okay, and also since slammer will make use of the UDP, and we know that UDP is a connectionless protocol, so there is no overhead of connection establishment with the usage of a slammer. Okay, so next we'll see the various worm propagation models, that is how at what rate the machines will get infected. Okay, by using the simple epidemic model and the KM model. Okay, these are all again very simple concepts. Thus in the simple epidemic model, what happens? The simple epidemic model used to study the spread of infectious diseases among the humans. Okay, and which is an appropriate starting point here to assume the thing. The model assumes that there are only two types of entities in the population. Okay, that is the individual is susceptible or he is infected. That's the assumption here. That is, an infected individual can infect a susceptible person. Once infected, a person remains infected and does not recover. Okay, here the possible option is, yeah, again we have two types of the population, that is two types of the entities in the population. The one type of the entity is susceptible The second is infected entities. Okay. An infected entity can infect the susceptible entity. So once the susceptible entity is infected, okay, the person remains infected and does not recover. These are the assumptions in simple epidemic model. So here we are considering that N be the size of the total population and I of T, I stands for infected, okay, I of T be the number of infected individuals at the time T. At this particular time T, we have this many number of infected entities, that is I of T. Then the number of susceptibles which we can calculate at the time T is now the equation N minus I of T, because N is the total population. From that we will be subtracting the infected entities at that particular time T. That gives us the susceptibles quantity. Now let beta is the initial infection rate, that is each infected person attempts to pass on the infection to other beta susceptibles in one time unit. Okay, we have the infection entities. Now the role of the infection entities is what? They will start spreading the infection to other susceptible entities. So we are representing that with the beta in 1 unit time. Now by using the differential equation, we have the following equation which captures the number of infected persons at the time t. Okay, the number of infected persons, okay, by the other infected entities. Okay, that is now the susceptible entities are going to become the infected entities. So that number we are going to calculate here using this equation. That is, we have d of I, di equals beta into I of t. I of t is nothing but the infected entities at the time t into 1 minus I of t divided by n into dt. That is, we are finding the number of infected persons, okay, that is d of I at the time interval t. Okay, so from this we have the beta of dt. Beta, that means nothing but what? Your beta is the initial infection rate, that is the infected person attempts to pass on the infections to the beta susceptibles. Okay, so beta dt equals, from this equation, first equation I have t of I into t divided by I of t into 1 minus I of t divided by n. This is 19.2 equation. Okay, so in an infinite population, each infected person infects beta dt susceptibles in time interval dt. Okay, here beta dt is nothing but, in this equation, the number of susceptibles who are going to become infected. Okay, the number of susceptibles who is going to become infected, okay, by the infected person. So in an infinite population, each infected person infects beta dt susceptibles in a time interval dt. But in the finite population of the size n, the probability that the target of an infective is already infected is I of t by n. That means I have already this many number of infected entities, that is I of t divided by n. Now such a targets do not add to the population of newly infected, right? So the factor 1 minus I of t divided by n in this equation, above equation 19.2, ensures that only the previously uninfected entities are added to the count of freshly infected in the time interval dt. So only this equation 1 minus I of t divided by n. That's the probability, right? Okay. From the total of 1, we will be subtracting the already existing infected people. Okay, so therefore this factor 1 minus I of t divided by n in the above equation ensures that only the previously uninfected entities are added to the count, okay, of the freshly infected in the time interval dt, because we are going to find, okay, the number of susceptible entities who is going to become infected. Okay, so only the equation 1 minus I of t by n is used here. So now by integrating the equation 19.2, we have the value I of t equals, okay, I naught n divided by I naught plus n minus I naught into e to the power minus beta t. Okay, so this is the simple epidemic model. Okay, so I of t is now what? The number of newly infected persons, newly infected entities at the time t is given by this equation 19.3 by using the simple epidemic model. Okay, so finally we have the second model, second worm propagation model, which is known as the KM model, which is the Kermack MC Kendrick model or Kermack M Kendrick model. This model is more accurately models the spread of human infectious disease by considering the three categories of the people. In the simple epidemic model, we considered two categories, that is susceptible entities, second is infectious entities. But in the KM model, we are considering three categories, that is those who are susceptible, that's the state S. The second is those who are infectious, the state I. And the third category is those who are neither, that is individuals who are cured or those who have succumbed to the disease, that is terminal T. We have S, I and terminal T, three categories of the entities or the people. So the assumption in the KM model is initially all the individuals in the populations are susceptible. Okay, all are susceptible here. Now it is possible to go from the state S to the state I, that is from the susceptible state S, okay, to the infectious individual, that's the state I. Susceptible can become infectious entity, okay, but not vice versa. Okay, these are the assumptions in the KM model. So now we are seeing the diagram here. We are moving from the state S to state I, and once the susceptible person is moving to the infectious state, once the susceptible entity is becoming the infectious entity, he cannot again recover back. He will be a infectious entity only. Okay, this was the model which was used in the simple epidemic model, that is SEM model, what we discussed earlier. Okay, now in the middle what we are seeing is the KM model, which we are going to discuss now. Okay, so in the KM model we have three entities, the susceptible entities, then infectious entities and the terminal entities, as we are discussed, okay, in the KM model, right? So once the susceptible entity is becoming the infectious entity, okay, here we can add a patch. Okay, so that is telling that an infectious person may or may not be cured. We have the assumptions here. An infectious person may or may not be cured. Okay, then if the infectious person is cured, he is not again vulnerable to disease. Okay, that is the usage of the patch here. Okay, here we are seeing a susceptible entity is becoming the infectious entity. Then if this infectious entity can be cured or cannot be cured. If he is cured, okay, then you will move to the terminal state. That means if cured, however, he is not again vulnerable to disease. That is the meaning of this transition. Okay, so that means the transition from the state S to I corresponds to an infected machine being patched. So as we are seeing here in the third diagram, the transition from S to I corresponds to an infected machine being patched. Okay, we are seeing here patched P2. Install patch is nothing but the infected machine is being patched here. And also again, such a machine is never vulnerable to a code red infection. So again also we are seeing here, once this there's a transition from S to I, this infected machine, okay, is never again vulnerable to a code red infection. So that means by installing a patch, we are seeing transition from I to the patch P1 here. Okay, so that means these infectious machines, okay, can be cured, and it will not, these machines are not again vulnerable to the infections again. These are never vulnerable to a code red infection. That's the meaning of the patch here. Okay, so that is the KM model. Okay, P1 and P2 are nothing but patched. Okay, so telling the machines is never vulnerable to a coded infection. So from this model also we can calculate the rate of the infectious entities at the time t. So as before, we have let I of t be the number of infectious machines at the time t, and n be the total number of the machines, and beta be the infection rate. Okay, beta is nothing but what? The number of susceptible entities becoming infectious entity, that is the beta. So now here let S of t be the number of susceptibles at the time t. Okay, so the number of machines in the terminal state. Terminal state is what? The transition from the state I to the state t, as we are seeing here. Okay, well, that is, these are the machines which are not or which are never vulnerable to the infections again. Okay, so the number of machines in the terminal state is, we have from the total number of machines n, we will be subtracting the susceptible machines and the infectious machines. That gives us the machines in the terminal state. Okay, so the Km set of the equation is given by, that is, we are going to differentiate the susceptible machines with respect to the time t, that is ds by dt, which equals to minus beta into I of t into S of t by n. Okay, this is the equation 19.4, and also we have the one more equation, that is d into n minus, that is the number of machines at the terminal state is what? N minus S of t minus I of t. We are differentiating the number of machines in the terminal state here with respect to the time t in the equation 19.5. Okay, where I will be getting the some constant gamma into I of t after differentiating. And this equation 19.3 is, we are differentiating the number of susceptible machines at the given time t. Okay, so that is 19.4 describes the rate at which the susceptible decreases due to the transition to the infectious state. Because we have some number of susceptible machines, few of the machines are going to move to the infectious state. So obviously the number of machines in the susceptible set will decreases, right? Once the few machines will move on to the infectious state. So that is obtained by this equation. So equation 19.4 tells the rate at which the susceptible decreases due to the transition to the infectious state. Okay, that is as we are seeing from here, from S to I. How many machines have moved from S to I and how many machines are remaining in the S again. That's the meaning of that. Okay, so that is obtained by this equation 19.4. Then 19.5 here. So we know that the equation n minus S of t minus I of t is the number of machines at the terminal state. So this equation 19.5 captures the rate at which the machines in the terminal state increases. Okay, because once the machines have moved from suspicious state to the infectious state, the machines now in the infectious states will move on to the terminal state, and those machines will never are never vulnerable to the infections again back. Okay, so obviously the number of machines in the terminal state will increases. So that rate at which the machines in the terminal state increases, okay, is given by the equation 19.5. Okay, so which is analogous the beta. Gamma is the rate, the gamma what we are seeing here in the equation 19.5 is the rate at which the infectious machines transit to the terminal state. Okay, so even though the KM model, using the KM model which explains the spread of the coded compared to the simple epidemic model, it still fails short. Few disadvantage is also present in the KM model. Okay, because its implicit assumptions are at which with the spread of internet scanning worms. Okay, so if we consider the parameters like the machines that are susceptible but not infectious may also be patched. Okay, see as we are seeing here, right, in the third diagram. Okay, the machines which are at the susceptible states are also have been patched here even though they are not infected. Okay, from this diagram. S to P2, the transition, that is the one of the thing here. Okay, then the infections rate beta, it is obviously a network dependent. Okay, so but here beta, they are going to consider the beta to be the constant value. Okay, so then the third point is the KM model assumes that the rate of the transition from the infectious to the terminal state is a constant, that is the gamma. Okay, that is this rate will decrease after most firmware administrators have applied their patches also. Okay, therefore the rate at which the machines are patched and hence gamma is far from constant. So these are the few things, okay, which where the KM model falls into short category. Okay, so that is the diagram with respect to the patching of the susceptible machine is we are seeing here in the diagram 3. Okay, that is not only the infectious machines are patched here, we are also seeing the susceptible machines are also being patched, few of the machines. Okay, so that is, these are the two models. Okay, today in class, okay, we discussed about the virus characteristics, then worm characteristics, okay, and the categories of the worms, then the few features, that is enhanced targeting, enhanced speed, enhanced capabilities, okay, then enhanced destructive power, then the about internet scanning worms and the two case studies, coded and the slammer, Then the two models of the worm propagation model, that is simple epidemic model, which assumes two population categories, that is susceptible and infected. Then KM model, which assumes three population categories: susceptible, infectious, and terminal. Okay, and here the once the machines are in the infectious states, okay, those machines will be patched, telling those machines are not again vulnerable back to the infection state, so they will move to the terminal state. That is with respect to the KM model. Okay. Yes, students, if you have doubts, please ask and submit the assignments as well as the PBL intermediate report. Okay, and go through the virtual lab assignment which has sent in Google Class, and submit the PDF report with respect to that also. Yes.